hear of it anymore because it didn't work. The Botox voice for spasmodic dysphonia is pushed by the New York Times March 2nd, 2003, and they're absolutely enthralled by the Botox voice. And what's the statement by the New York Times on the Sunday edition front page?
Well, that Botox is giving patients with spastic vocal cords back their voices.
The question is, what kind of voices are they getting back?
Well, no, the question is why the author or the reporter who made the statement will not give you a reference for how he came up with that statement. You have a letter here from the New York Times, so you can show this to the audience here. And this letter is a response to simply wanting to have an accurate source of the statement that Botox is giving patients back with spastic vocal cords back their voices. Now, here's what Corcoran said to you. This is the editor. This is David Corcoran, the assistant science editor. He said here that I've gone back and read the article. The reference to Botox as therapy for spastic vocal cords was passing, and as far as I can tell, not inaccurate. Now, did you bring to his attention that Botox as therapy for spastic vocal cords, was that your statement that you asked him to investigate?
No, I wasn't concerned with that. I was concerned with who was the source that gave Donald G. McNeil, Jr. that statement.
The writer of the article.
Yeah. Where is the expertise, the background that qualifies Donald G. McNeil, Jr. to make that statement? He's a general writer. He's a very good writer.
Statement that Botox is giving patients with spastic vocal cords back their voices.
That's right. I want to know who sourced them.
Why did Corcoran respond to that particular statement? He's an editor.
Yes.
Now, here's part of the problem we have today. We have a difficulty getting over the New York Times right now. The big one that blew off, I think, blew the whole cover off the New York Times was Jason Blair. He was actually outright fabricating things. Now we're finding some very interesting kinds of reporting that goes on there. You've brought to the attention in the Science Times problems with this statement that you can't get a source on, and you've tried numerous times in different ways, and you still can't get an idea who sourced the statement that Botox is giving patients back their vocal cords.
I couldn't even get a documentation that is meaningful, that's accurate, from Donald G. McNeil,
but you know
Jr.
That Judith McNeil.
I want to just follow through. I asked, what is the documentation?
Yeah.
Two questions I asked. What is the documentation for that statement? And Donald G. McNeil, Jr. was very kind in giving me a 2002 report from the Journal of Otology, Rhinology, and Laryngology that had nothing to do with that statement. Nothing.
It also had nothing to do with spasmodic dysphonia or...
No, it had it, because the statement that he gave me from a journal, that journal, was talking about bilateral cord paralysis. Overwhelmingly, those with spastic vocal cords or strangled voices do not have bilateral cord paralysis. That's an exception. Such an exception, it's basically off the radar screen. And that statement, that blurb from the 2002 that he faxed to me saying that that is my documentation has nothing to do with what he said.
Well, okay, let's go.
And then he won't give me the source.
The source of
who
the
gave him the statement. First I asked for the documentation,
who's the
which
source
is irrelevant.
Yeah. Now, here's a question. You've got Judith Miller, who is writing. She's in the heart right now of this, the whole center of the controversy related to the outing of the CIA agent Valerie Plame that may bring down Dick Cheney, Karl Rove, Scooter Libby, the chief of staff for Dick Cheney. It could take down the entire White House, and it could even take down President Bush. Now, and Judith Miller is at the heart of this, being the veteran reporter for the New York Times. That Maureen Dowd, who's a syndicated columnist for the New York Times, is now reporting that she's run amok over there.
She's talking about Miller.
About Judith Miller. Now, what she's referring to in running amok is that basically because of her sources that she would not disclose, she went to jail. Now, McNeil Jr. has not gone to jail for failing to reveal a source to you because you're not a grand jury and you're not a U.S. attorney. Now,
they fluffed me off.
But here's the parallel between the two. Miller wouldn't reveal her source either for the numerous articles that she had written on weapons of mass destruction, the basis of which 2,000 Americans have now died in Iraq, and another 2,000 in the next 2 years will wind up dying if something isn't done, as a result of her using the New York Times to lend credibility to the story that Saddam Hussein was a dangerous a menace with weapons of mass destruction. Now, the New York Times has also done it in your field.
One of those weapons was botulinum toxin, which kills 100 to 200,000 people with a thumbnail of that substance, undiluted.
Now, here's the parallel to your situation. The parallel is that equally false, misleading, and inaccurate and unsourced and undocumented information has now been disseminated off the front page to untold numbers of people who may be suffering from this condition, who after reading this article would run out and get Botox treatments.
Why not? This is such an endorsement, blithely made, without sourcing, without documentation, that it to me is mind-boggling as to why it's an absurdity that I'm looking at. That's me clinically. But what is the reality? Why am I talking about this when people don't understand what Botox for spasmodic dysphonia may be doing? They don't tell you that the dosage is uncertain, that it's experimental by the top, the creme de la creme, and they're playing with the dosage, that there are serious consequences from the Botox shot for spasmodic dysphonia, that people are taking Botox, they go on a roller coaster ride, in and out over a period of time. They lose their voice, they get some voice, hopefully they get a better voice. It lasts for a short while, they get another Botox shot. The same process continues for 4 to 10 Botox shots or more each and every year for life.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that your gripe with the New York Times is really more related to that if a marketing organization like Allergan Inc., for instance, or a nonprofit organization like the National Spasmodic Dysphonia Association that gets generous donations from Allergan, if they were making a statement like Robert McAllister did not that long ago.
Who is Robert McAllister?
He's the former director, executive director of the National Spasmodic Dysphonia.
This group gets money from Allergan.
Yeah, his statement was made in USA Today that Botox is a godsend, and that it is the cat's meow with respect to treating spasmodic dysphonia. Now, you would expect a statement from McAllister like that to be taken for what it's worth. Here, this guy represents an organization that gets heavy donations and yet pretends to be independent.
Yeah, but the public doesn't know that the NSDA is getting donations of money from Allergan.
Yeah,
they don't know
may not know that.
No, they don't.
But do they know, the public, in looking at the New York Times, would you say that they would have every reason to believe that what they would read would be factual and accurate information?
Absolutely. The New York Times is the gold standard. It has believability, credibility. It has all the abilities. And when you read that statement, you go out and you get Botox.
It has a lot of weight to it. I mean,
it's more than a little weight or weight. It has authority. It has everything that a product could be sold. And the New York Times is saying to the audience, and those to the public and the media, and to those with spasmodic dysphonia, this is the cure-all, this is the panacea. It implies that. Maybe it didn't mean that. But it's not talking about the qualifications, the reservations of the Botox and what it does to people. That's the issue involved. They're not giving full disclosure as to what Botox is doing for spastic vocal cords, other than saying this is what you should do. And they're not a balanced story.
Your concern about the New York Times is that they're giving false and misleading information, and maybe, I mean, it sounded to me like you're even wondering if the source they would not identify their source, that perhaps there's a reason why they are refusing, like Miller refused to identify her source of the WMD in all her articles. And now the source, of course, who outed Valerie Plame, the wife of Joseph Wilson, ex-Iraq ambassador, that she's a secret, that she's a covert CIA operative. That's the thing that may bring the White House down. But in your case, with the spasmodic dysphonia stuff, all you wanted to get to the bottom of is how could a writer who has no background in the field of voice and speech pathology make a statement
very concise,
that Botox is giving patients,
very apropos.
It was almost like a slogan. Botox
it's an infomercial.
Is giving patients with spastic.
It's an ad.
It sounds like an ad.
It's endorsed by the full